Hello, adoring fans, and by that I mean Fishface60. Thanks for joining. How are you doing, my friend? Twitch says we have 5 people watching. If you're lurking, hello, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you want, but if you want to just lurk, that's also fine. And welcome to another episode of Blizzard Comedy Profiles. And we have an absolutely fantastic episode for you today. I'm aware I say this every time, but that's because I only book absolutely fantastic comedians. Tell you what, I'm bloody knackered. Up late after some clandestine leafleting. Oh yeah, of course. Local elections today. Hope you all had a good time voting. I was not able to because my passport has expired and I have not been able to replace it yet because they're quite expensive. Which is I know is a problem when there's so many fantastic candidates to vote for. I don't know about your areas, there might be, but I hope you all had a good time voting if you did that. So let's pause of the centrist record candidate. Then up at 6 a.m. to send out GOTV leaflets for supporters to see before they leave the house to remind them to vote. I did not do that. You apparently failed in that aspect. I mean, we're in different constituencies, but I feel like you should have just gone around the whole country to everyone. That's fine. You got up at 6 anyway, plenty of time. My face has disappeared. You're right. Can you still hear me? Right. Get zoomed back up. Oh, what's going on? Why has my face disappeared? Well, I'm going to sort that while the clip's on, but as long as you can hear me, that's the important part. I didn't put makeup on today. Already gone on the tangent, right? So, this show we're going to be talking to the wonderful Alex Stringer, who is an absolute icon of the northern comedy scene. She's running a lovely series of comedy shows at the Frog and Bucket at the moment, which I'm sure we'll get into talking about. She's only done our live show once, but we're definitely need to get her back again soon. It's absolutely fantastic. And in case you didn't see her when she came to Blizzard Comedy in the end of 2021, we've got a little clip for to give you some context now, and then if you've got any questions you'd like me to ask her, do feel free to pop them in the chat and enjoy. So here is Alex Stringer, circa I think November 2021 right now.
I came out when I was 20 and I said to some of my lesbian friends like, Hayley introduced me to some women exactly like that. No wonder they said no. And I think now I understand why they said no. And I think it's because like when you first come out, it's a bit like when you're first learning how to drive, and that like everyone is so happy for you that you're finally learning how to drive, but no one is letting you near their car. And even though I was born with a car of my own, no one is letting me play with their clutch. Wordplay, tick. Yeah, I'm quite a bad bisexual though. I didn't know what lesbian bed death meant. For those of you that don't know, it's normally in a different room. But for those of you that don't know, it's when two people get into a relationship and everything moves really quickly, so the sex life kind of curtails off, right? Whereas I thought it meant when someone finds your clitoris so quickly without assistance that your heart just stops for a minute. Like, she died. Didn't know what she loved. But yeah, I am on Tinder though. Is anyone else on Tinder? Liars. Yeah, I am on Tinder. But I've got a bit of beef with Tinder. And I think it's because, so I live in Liverpool right next to the River Mersey. And so a lot of my matches live on the other side of the water in a place called the Wirral, right? Which would be fine if I could swim. Or has a boat. Or liked people from the Wirral, which... So... I told that joke in Birkenhead last week because I'm fucking fearless. Thank you. I have to tell the tale.
I'm good. I'm well. I'm actually going to vote after this. Yeah. 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 I am. Yeah. I'm still here. I know. But yeah. Yeah, no, to be fair, it was weird that one of them was like a newspaper, which I had never really seen that as a marketing tool before. So that was kind of weird. I was like, can I throw this newspaper out? And my housemate was like, yeah, it's actually a candidate I don't know, manifesto. I don't know. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put that in the bin. Not saying who they are politically, but I would put them in the bin anyway. But yeah, no, I feel like there's not really like, you know, Liverpool is a Labour stronghold, really. So
yeah, it's very much the same here.
Yeah, but I do believe in the importance of voting, and people died for our vote. And I am normally way more on top of it. But I literally got in, and my housemate was like, "Have you voted?" And I was like, "Oh fucking no!" Like, I've got to be on Twitch actually. So I was like,
this is absolutely much more important than exercising democracy. Also, I completely agree. I fixed the face issue, and I realised that my sound wasn't actually coming through the stream. So that just sounded like a one-sided conversation for like the first minute. I do apologize. We've gone straight into this comedy podcast to talk about voting. Hope you, but you are all still here. So also, hello, Safi Sonia. Thanks for joining. I think I've sorted it now. I've got face and voice. We're good.
Yay.
So yeah, Alex, it's always weird doing this stream because it all does just feel like an excuse for me to just absolutely nerd out and absolutely fangirl over some of my favourite comedians, and this is absolutely no exception. But I'm going to try and keep it somewhat. I was going to say objective, but no, I'm not. Try to get somewhat professional. I've prepared a few questions here. We may or may not get to all of them. Again, anyone in the chat, if you've got anything specific you want to ask or tag on to anything we're talking about, do feel free to join, and I will keep an eye on the chat and address them. So yeah, I guess first of all, when we're talking to comedy, when did you first develop an interest in comedy as a fan or a performer?
As a fan, defo, like for all of my life really, but I think that I guess that like growing up, you don't necessarily think of TV as in genres.
No, you don't.
No, and so even like stuff that I watched as a kid, like I always loved like funny stuff. Obviously, I think people must have really sad lives if they don't like funny stuff. But yeah, I always like kind of loved that. And then I started going to Edinburgh like 10 years ago.
Cool.
I've kind of grown up as like a theatre person.
Would that have been 2013 your first year or?
Yes. Yeah, no, it must have been 2013.
I literally just missed it. So my first and only time at the festival is 2012 as a punter. I've never performed there, but that's the only time I've been able to afford to actually go up. And even then, we were staying in North Berwick, which I don't even think is technically in Scotland, but it still worked out as cheaper getting the train in every day than it would have been trying to get accommodation. Yeah,
that's it. And it's just gotten worse over 10 years
exactly,
as well.
Yeah.
It's like you can stay in one of our lovely bins. Like we're on strike, you can't even find space in there. But yeah, no, I started going about 10 years ago, and I always like a lot of my friends are theatre people as well, and it was like I was always the person that was kind of doing like a 50-50 comment, like going to watch hours and stuff. And so but I don't think I definitely had no idea that I was ever going to do this, and my friends didn't either. I think they just kind of was like, oh, I'll dip their toe in, gives a shit about comedians. And so, it was never really a thing for me, but, grew up and kind of, loved Victoria Wood and like Julie Walters and some like amazing comedic voices, like female comedic voices, and then started doing it, and then as time's gone on, like it's just so funny to me how like when people talk about favorite comics and stuff, like mine are usually just kind of not your generic like big boys and stuff.
That's an interesting one. Like, so I think we've definitely had Victoria Wood come up a few times when I've asked people this question. But yeah, like it is, and I'm guilty of this as well. Like my entire stand-up DVD collection is nearly all white men, which is disappointing. I mean, partly it's because those were the only people who had the opportunity to get DVD releases, and now that's kind of less of a thing. Like it's either digital download or streaming these days, and I think the variety is a bit better now. But it's a shame that in my physical collection, it is just like a row of white men.
I actually got rid of my like physical DVDs because my housemate told me that it's like a dying art. He was like, "Why are you even going to play it on?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't have anything to play it on."
I'm still like a big retro games collector, so I've got so many devices that play DVDs. I've not got an actual DVD player.
No, I've literally got nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh yeah, that's fair enough." And then I tried to sell them right on eBay because like I love
these days.
Honestly, fuck all. Literally, it was like some like
just
a pound.
take a big bag into
and
CEX. You'll get like 2p for each or something.
yeah, that was it. No, but to be fair, in the end, the reason why I stopped, so I'd only sold a few, and then I tried to sell the DVD Cabaret, and this guy called Raul from Mexico was like, "I'll buy it," and I was like, "Love it." And then he basically when he got it, he sent me this like really like not abusive, but it was like an email kind of being like, "This isn't the one I wanted, or that you like advertised, whatever." And you know me, like it was £1, Raoul. Like literally build a bridge and get over it. And so then I was like, I think I sent him a bit of a snotty reply, and I was like, "Enjoy Cabaret, Liza's great." And just, like,
oh wow,
fuck you, Raoul. But yeah, so and then I was like, "Nah, I'm not selling the rest of these and just gonna give them to a charity shop." Even they're quite picky though.
Oh god, they are. Yeah. Well, just a lot of them just kind of gathered up. Yeah, like I say, there's people don't really have DVD players anymore unless like you get like specific age demographics possibly, but a lot of them aren't really that interested in comedy DVDs from the mid to late 2000s, which have mostly like there's like a couple that I think have become classics, but most of them have aged pretty terribly.
Proper
on the whole. Got completely off topic there already, and we've been going 20 minutes. This is a good start. But yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. That's what these are for. But I wanted to address. I think you made an interesting point I've not really heard before about kind of just enjoying like media without really thinking about it in terms of comedy or not, but just having like comedy in it. And I think when you talk about kids shows specifically, that's a really interesting thing, because I think a lot of kids shows use a lot of comedy without there being a lot of like really dedicated comedy shows for kids. Like the only one I can really think of off the top of my head was a sketch show from like the mid 2000s called Stupid, that I think you could broadly class that as like that was a comedy show. It was a sketch format, but a lot of the time
I used to watch, like, I think it was on Nickelodeon, but it was like, you know, the Amanda show, like Amanda Bynes. Obviously she's gone through a lot, but it was like a one-woman show.
Yeah, that's
an
amazing.
Edinburgh comedy show, like every week, like churning them out. And she was sick. She was so good. Like she probably still is if you know, she wasn't like controlled by you know, the narrative and all that sort of stuff. But like that like early stuff of her, it was like character acts. Like she'd watch and learn from that. Like so good, so really talented. Cool. But I would never watch it. I've never have watched it and gone, "Oh, I'm watching comedy."
No,
do you know what I mean?
Like, just watch it. Yeah, it's just entertainment, and a lot of the best entertainment is at least somewhat humorous.
Yeah.
Absolutely, high praise there from me. Somewhat humorous, Johnny Collins, 2K23. That's really cool. So, you mentioned as well that you didn't really. So you started like consuming comedy live without really thinking about it as something that you wanted, that you were going to get into. At what point did you kind of make the conscious decision to get into comedy, or did you just kind of fall into it and then like it? What's the story there?
So I did a workshop for a writer's workshop, because I was writing a play and I wanted it to be funnier, and it was by a female comic called Jane Postlethwaite, and she basically after the workshop was like, "You should try stand up," and I was like, and then for the next week I was like and ahhing about doing a course, and I was like, fuck it. Like, if it's rubbish, no one will ever know.
Yeah.
And if it's good, then whatever. And yeah, I did it, and it was like, oh wow, like this kind of felt amazing. And I was just like, I remember someone saying to me when I first started, like, "Oh, you should do stand up like once a week," and I was like, "Sure." Like, I've got a social life, and then literally as time went on, it's rare that I only gig once a week now.
Wow,
Do you know what I mean?
that's
Like how much it's like taken on my life. So, so it just kind of happened, and then I love it.
I think that's an interesting point to make, because you don't really it's not that people don't talk about it, but you never really consider just how, like, because all stand-ups generally work in very antisocial hours. So the fact that, like, I often make jokes about how, like, incestuous the comedy circuit is. Like, everyone knows
Proper.
everyone. A lot of them are either dating or are exes with a lot of them. Not to go into any specific details for anyone, but you kind of think, actually, if for those who are actually kind of dedicated and doing, or not even necessarily dedicated, but those who are gigging like the most frequently, that kind of is their only social time, is before and after gigs. That must. So did like your social circles change a lot in that time, or do you still manage to keep that kind of balanced?
No, I think I'm quite good at it. I think initially there was a bit of I hope my like male, straight male peers won't mind me saying this, but like when I first started, I felt a little bit like, because you usually like the token, woman on a lineup or whatever.
Especially a few years ago, it's still a thing now, but like. Like I started in 2012, and it was definitely worse. Like then, up until at least like possibly since lockdown, really. It's like I've started noticing it improving a little bit now. Like, it's still very unbalanced, but I think the comedy store had like their first all-female lineup in like 2019 or something, I want to say, and that's ridiculous given how old the Manchester one anyway. I don't know if the London one.
It is kind of crazy, but when I started, I felt a little bit like the new kid at school, and I think I was also in a weird thought process from me, but like I was a bit like, I'm not here to make friends, like I'm here to like do the thing and then fuck off. And then I think over time, and I think also it's just how people are. I think some comedy people, especially the straight male guys, like they tend to be they're like gimps that you went to school with, and they don't know how to talk to women, and they're like
100%,
and so it's almost like I wasn't like, oh my god, they fancy me. It was more like, oh, they're just like, oh my god, a girl, like we don't know what to do. And so I felt like over time they were like, oh, Alex is just like not one of the lads, but Alex is just part of the furniture. You're going to see her a lot. She's going to be around, and you'll meet her and say hello or whatever. And then over time I became friends with them, and it was like, oh, okay, then this is good. And then it's funny, like I've set up a network for women and non-binary comics called the Owl Network, and that is basically for female and non-binary comics to be able to connect, because really cool. Often when you are the sole diversity tick on a lineup in that sense, that it's like we don't meet each other, and then it can feel quite lonely that you don't have peers that are walking the same walk as you, because you're all segregated. And I was just like, let's like nip that in the bud. And it's been really nice, actually. It's been really nice to change that, because I am getting closer to more female comics. Because usually I remember I did a gig with a comic in, I think it was just before Christmas, and she'd been going maybe like 6 months ish, and everyone, I was like, oh, have you met her? And everyone around the table was like, yeah, duh. And I was like, I haven't. And don't you see why that is a problem? Like, we're like never put on the same lineup because we're both women. And so it's like, and then I think it kind of hit home a little bit for them to be like, oh yeah, that's a bit fucking weird,
Yeah.
because like we've all met her loads of times, but you never have, because you're just never put on a lineup together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see changes, and I think it also depends on, you know, the people that are willing to push for that change and really try and advocate for that change as well.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas some people are like happy to do the bare minimum and just be like, oh no, like we'll give you one, but like let's not go too far. And you're like,
Yeah.
cool, thanks. Like,
Yeah, I guess it can feel quite like it can feel quite patronizing when, like, I think you can tell as well when promoters are doing it because they genuinely want to improve, or if they're doing it because they want to see people to stop complaining.
yeah,
I think you can
100%.
tell, and like
Yeah.
you get stuff like when Mock the Week introduced its policy of like always having at least one woman on the show. It did feel very tokenistic at the time, but that did kind of open the way
Yeah.
to actually towards the end, like the range of acts on there was quite a bit higher, certainly than when it started.
Yeah,
and like, but like on Mock the Weekend, like sort of before, sort of like pre 2014, 2015, you'd watch it and it would be like they'd have like two women on ever, and they'd never be on at the same time.
Yeah,
Especially
100%.
women of color as well. Like there was that whole controversy with like they used to like get Jeannie Esray on a lot, and then they got Andy Osho on instead, and Gina just basically stopped getting booked, and that's like, okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, proper.
Yeah.
And that's it. You see it all the time, and it's like it's hard to be like, oh, hey, this feels tokenistic, but it's like, you know, being present and being seen, is that a way to push through the noise and be like, hey, we exist, and being able to be like, you know, I was fucking great, but there can still be that feeling of also as well, like I said before I came on, that I had a gig last night, and I think sometimes when I do a gig and I didn't feel like it went great for me, that I feel still sometimes that
you're like letting your entire gender down.
that I'm speaking for all women, and that people then go away and go, women aren't funny. And
well,
like,
I mean, in that instance,
one woman wasn't funny.
In that instance, that's not entirely irrational, because there are a lot. I mean, depending on like the clubs and the kind of audience you're getting, there are definitely, like, if you're in a club that is mostly targeted towards a specific kind of man, they are gonna go away and be like, "See, I told you women aren't funny." And they're gonna always. That's just gonna. It just takes for one woman to reinforce that.
Yeah, exactly, and push through that, and you know, but then it's not to do with like you know, like say Mock the Week, perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can have like really different comics. Like you've got like Milton Jones, and then you've got like Dara, and then you've got like who am I thinking of? You know, like James Acaster, like all very, fairly different. But you can go, oh, he's not for me. I just don't really like James Acaster. It's not very funny.
Yeah.
Like for me, like whoever it is.
Yeah.
But if it's like, you know, like you said, like Andy Osho or you know, Angela Barnes or whatever, and being like, women aren't funny because she's the only one on there, and it's like, it's really hard to kind of push through that pressure.
I think especially one of the problems of like tokenizing in that format as well is the woman has to be the woman comedian on it. They can't really. It's very hard for them to get their own identity because there's that kind of elephant in the room of like,
you're
okay,
the Gale.
This is especially if you kind of know the behind the scenes of like, okay, this is a deliberate policy they've made. You're like, okay, they just try to. I like no shade to Angela specifically because it's not her fault, but they're kind of like, okay, who is the most accessible woman we can get who's going to offend the least amount of our core audience?
Yeah, and that's the thing also as well, like sometimes with my comedy I can have like certain perspectives, like, you know, I've got a bit about the fact that like I don't like I've got a bit that's kind of like shady towards my mum, and like it does fairly
shady?
well.
What? No.
But sometimes people are very like they almost it's this thing around this is fucking deep, but like it's almost that thing of like female serial killers, right? Stay with me.
Yeah.
It's almost like people are like, I cannot compute like a woman doing that. because we're kind of supposed to be fluffy and nice all the time.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I feel like I present that like version, people are a bit like, oh bloody hell. But someone is talking about like, you know, what's like a good example? You know, like bestiality. Someone's making a joke about bestiality, but God forbid I talk shit about my mum. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just that weird double standards. But then it's hard as well because it's like don't fucking talk about it because then it's like oh you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Hard.
you kind of can't win in that moment.
No.
No, if you've got an
Just have
audience
to
who are going to
ride it.
listen to it, then they probably won't be doing that in the first place. So it's
No.
you kind of
Yeah.
kind of stuck.
Yeah. But hey ho, like, but then I have some people and they're just like they fucking love that it's darker and that it's like
Yeah.
a bit of a fuck you to this kind of like
Oh yeah, I'm one of those people. I
you
absolutely
know.
love that, and that's one of my favorite things about
Yeah.
about your act. It's almost
100%.
it's almost got a bit of like it's not, but there's definitely a bit of, and I don't know if you watch it specifically, but it's definitely got a little bit of like early drag vibes in terms of like your kind of persona and how you
My
kind of
God,
deliver.
that's
Yeah.
like the nicest compliment I've ever had.
That could have gone either
literally.
way, compliment wise. Yeah,
I
it's
know,
just,
made
but
up.
no, there's like it's like specifically like you kind of like I mean, given he sadly passed away recently, it's very that kind of like Lily Savage flavor of kind of like
Yeah.
little bit sarky, kind of a little bit like slightly drunk, slightly rude aunt vibes.
Yeah,
that
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be that. But yeah, it's that thing of like I don't know. I don't know whether obviously he can't fight me on it now, but like I feel like that even he would be like, we'll still have like male privilege,
Oh yeah, no,
even like
100%.
in that. It's like
Yeah,
you know
it's a whole
they
conversation
say
with drag to unpack that.
yeah. Oh my God.
like
And they say, don't they, a lot about like, you know, like drag queens are something to fear and adore at the same time. And I
Yeah.
think that's so cool. Like
yeah.
kind of that air about them. And I would love to be able to be like, yeah, that's it. But yeah, it's kind of hard. It's funny as well. I feel like my act is like evolving a bit, and it's that thing of when you're doing circuit comedy, trying to stay true to what makes you laugh and stay true to what you want to present,
Sure.
but also trying to be palatable and kind of being like, hey guys, like but I still feel like a baby in comedy in the sense that I'm still trying to like, you know, people kind of go, you know, some comics will do a gig and go, oh, they didn't really go for this stuff, so I pivoted and did this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have that back, like I don't have that back catalogue of
Right.
material to just pick from, and so it's like this is what you're getting, people. Like I just can't pivot that much.
I mean, speaking of someone who does have like a reasonable back catalogue at this point, it's still like I think it's a specific talent to be able to like pick up on what's not working in the room and then not panic and be able to switch. Like I think even the act of doing it, like I know I definitely struggle with that. Even though I do know I have other material, in that moment I'm like, oh, what I plan to do isn't going well. I kind of freeze up. It's hard to
I do feel like some comics do go, yeah, I got to the end of the set and I still hadn't worked out that equation, like that sweet spot, because they went for this but not this. Yeah, and maybe that just takes a long time to get there. But
yeah, it's one of those things. It's not like it's a completely linear thing as well. You'll have sometimes the vibes will be just right and you'll be able to just go for it. Like I know I've definitely had bad gigs that I've not necessarily won back, but I've felt better about because I've just kind of like dealt with it as it's came through and just been like, you know, I'm just gonna amuse myself for the rest of my set time, and then leave.
Yeah.
Which like I definitely wouldn't be able to do when I started out. But sometimes it's hard to quantify exactly what like everything has to be just right for me to be able to feel like I can do that. And sometimes I can't. Like gong shows obviously can't necessarily do that. Or actually sometimes I can when I've been like I've already decided I can already tell like there's been 50 acts on. One of them has got through, and it's nothing like me. I'm not going to last, but so I'm just gonna see how much I can piss him off. I feel like that was
maybe a bit of an issue last night as well. I feel like at a certain point I maybe went into a bit of defeatist mode, and I should have probably gone into more of a I'm going to enjoy this and do this for me. But I think, I think that I maybe wasn't. I wasn't really in that headspace, and I think. Like I'm willing to learn. There is so much to learn in terms of all of that stuff as well, and but yeah, I'm willing to learn it, and I'm also big enough, like, you know, get me big girl nicks on and go, okay, fucking hell, you know, have a little bit of a, you know, cry to Taylor Swift in the car, and then, you know,
have a cry to Ben and Jerry's and just get on with it.
Exactly, and just be like, right, I'm reading oh, so dark. But like, I'm reading Ronan Farrow's book at the minute, like the Catch and Kill book. So it was so weird to be like fucking like in such a weird space in the car, and to like get in, take me makeup off, and be like, reading such dark shit, and just like. But I woke up today and I felt fine, and I think I'm also really quite good at perspective still in terms of comedy and life, and kind of going, it's not that deep. And I can say that with a day between gigs, but at that moment when I came off stage, I was like, oh, fuck this noise. But that's fine. Like, I think I'm just not a person that is gonna. But you know what is so nice, right? So you know, a lot of people talk about the Millikan law. So this idea. Okay, so she spoke to Stuart Goldsmith on Comedian's podcast.
I feel like I've listened to it about ages ago, so I don't remember it.
Yeah, and it was basically this idea that you have until 11 o'clock the next day, whether a gig was amazing or bad, that you only have till 11 o'clock. But it was so funny. I gigged with her in. Was it at the end of last year? It must have been. And I gigged with her, and I said to her, do you know that open mic comics talk about that? And she was like, I didn't. And then the other day someone told me about it, and she was like, I love that. I think that's so nice. And I was like, oh yeah,
that's really cool.
It's so cute. I know. And she was buzzing. She was like, oh, that's boss. Like,
bless her, that's adorable.
I'm so glad that like this small psychological thing that helped me has helped other people to kind of crack on and move on, and you know,
absolutely, no, it's really it sounds self-explanatory, but it is the kind of thing you have to kind of get out your emotions a little bit, and I think just be able to get into that mentality of, okay, I absolutely bombed last night. Is there anything I can learn from it? Because sometimes there is. Sometimes there's something you could have done better. Sometimes it's just it wasn't going to work. And just like take away if there's anything you can learn from it, and then just move on. Like implement them or think about them, and then if not, just move on. And either way, move on.
Defo.
I think you need the right kind of temperament to do that. And I think that is something that just does get a bit easier as you go on as well. Like when you've got I think your first death is always the hardest one, because you've not got any perspective from that necessarily. If you've only ever had like good or at least gigs that you'd consider like were successful for your point in your career at that time, kind of thing. You kind of like. I definitely fell into like my first gig that I considered bad at the time. Like I look back at my old gigs and like all of them were bad, but like at the time, the first gig I was like just afterwards this went terribly. Before I'd went on, it was only my third gig, but I was like, oh, I'm absolutely boss at this. I was great, and I was being a little bit arrogant when like chatting to the comedians backstage, being like, oh yeah, giving people advice they didn't ask for, all this kind of shit, and then going on and like only having like one joke kind of get a laugh in 5 minutes, and then that moment really humbled me. And if I didn't have a gig booked the day after that, I probably just would have sacked it off for a while. But because I had a gig booked in the day after it, and that went a lot better.
Get back on the horse.
I don't have any stats for this, but I would imagine most people who like quit or take a long break from stand-up comedy would probably be after their first bad gig, I would assume. Or to be fair, do what I do and just basically blame it in terms of the location. Yeah, that
So I
definitely happens a lot,
basically
yeah.
don't like a bit of North Wales.
Yeah.
Just because that was where my first like big death was. And I was like, right, fuck you all.
Yeah.
Use a trash. I'm amazing.
I've
And
got the
then,
same with
yeah.
fucking Doncaster for the same reason.
Oh, fair. Like honestly though, like I still trash talk it. It shows that I've clearly not grown up enough or like moved on enough to
Yeah.
be like a grown up enough to go, you know, I'll give them another shot. In my head, they are dead to me. Like I'm like, use never getting back
Yeah.
in. Never.
That
Ever.
actually
But yeah.
touches something interesting that I didn't write a question for, but it's something I always find interesting to talk about. So you do gig like around quite a bit. Do you find there are like key distinctions between like regions when you are gigging in them? Like, do certain things work better in certain places? Do you struggle more in certain? I mean, North Wales aside, are there any other places that you kind of like have maybe got like a more accurate reading on like, okay, these certain things work better or worse here? If that makes sense.
I had a joke. I've got a joke in my set at the minute, and I did it in London about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I did it like throughout the week. It just didn't seem to land the way it does in the north.
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
was a bit like, what?
That's
But but then there is some stuff. Like personally, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn because a lot of people have this opinion, but it's like I think in London where the audience is very varied, and when you've done gigs in like, you know, working men's clubs like in the arse end of nowhere, they're like the gigs where you cut your teeth. So it's almost like it's not easy, but it feels easier than some of the shit you've gone through. But I think it also makes you a better comic, which I think is a good thing. But I feel like that gig was a little bit specific because I was talking about where I live in terms of Liverpool, and basically I do a bit about you know, geography and about dating apps and your kind of your radius, right? And so I think maybe it was that. But
might have been. There's a little bit of an in joke,
Yeah, but otherwise, generally, like I really try, which I do think sometimes, like I'm not one to question other people's comedy, but I do think sometimes people do get really trapped in like gigging just in their own backyard.
Yeah, I think London especially is very.
Yeah, I'm thinking that won't. I'm thinking that it's fucking gold because it's gold in your backyard, and it's why like, and it can happen. I've seen it both north to south, south to north, wherever you're coming at. But it's like, you know, certain things that you joke about in Liverpool might not land in London. But then if you do a joke about the tube in Liverpool, people are like, who gives a fuck about the tube? Like, what the fuck is the tube? And so I think it's actually just having that like thing. But I think generally, it's definitely making me better in terms of writing and certain things, because I really do. I try to always come from perspective, so a lot of my stuff always comes from a place of truth, even if it's exaggerated. And that's usually because I don't really ever want anyone to go, so and so's got a bit about that. It's like, well, they can't will that happen to me? So who gives a fuck if they've got a bit about that? I'm sure my perspective's different. So I think that's helpful. But generally, I do try and write stuff that is like not like easy access, just in terms of that everyone understands what that is or what that is, and it's not necessarily so niche that it can't travel. And I really do bear that in mind, because, you know, I do want to get, like, I did last week I did a gig in Edinburgh on Wednesday, and then I was in Birmingham on Thursday, and it's like both times did roughly the same set, and it was fine. But I think it's just, you just kind of learn that, and I think you'd only get better by traveling, but I'm at a state
Yeah.
in terms of comedy where I'm trying to like value what I do. And it's like when someone, because I work as well, when someone is like, hey, do you want to come to like Nottingham on a Sunday for no money? I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I really
Not
don't
really.
think so. You're like in a gig that doesn't offer any progression and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
and kind of just valuing what I bring to the table and just kind of not being a tit and going, because I also think people also go, why are they fucking gigging everywhere for no money in the arse end of nowhere?
Yeah.
They notice that as well. Do you know what I mean? I'm just getting to a stage where I'm trying to value value what I do.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then also gigging everywhere where I can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, well, yeah, I think there's a difference. Like, so, like you're not gonna. It's not worth your time really to travel and do like an open mic in a completely different city. Like maybe when you're first starting out and you want to kind of just get an experience of like transferring your material. Like I certainly know. I think touching on London, I think it's really interesting because the London circuit is, or at least was when I was last in it, incredibly dense and incredibly segregated. Not in terms of like personal traits, but like there's a fast open mic circuit and there's a pretty high tier professional circuit, and not really a lot of progression room between. And I think a lot of people who start off in London, like in some ways it's good because there's so many different open mics going on. But the fact is, a lot of them, and obviously a lot of them are bringers, which I'm not going to get into the discussion of that here, but that does mean that it is usually just comedians and comedians' friends in the audience, which means the audiences are kind of the same, so you do get a bit stagnated. You're just you're learning how to make the same group of, like, not necessarily friends, but like kind of like work colleagues laugh. And I think then translating that outside of London, it was definitely a bit of a culture shock to me when I first moved up to Manchester. Whereas like Manchester, like there's probably more people in the London circuit than there are like the whole northwest, the whole northwest circuit. And I think even in the northwest circuit, like Liverpool, Manchester, have very like there's a lot of crossover, but there are different vibes there, I think. So I think in like other regional scenes, I think you do get a bit more variety in that sense.
Yeah. I think it's really nice though. Like, yeah, I'm really glad. I'm also really glad because, you know, when people are, you know, dying in London and stuff, like in terms of comedy, and people are like watching that, whereas like some of my friends that have been able to go down to London and be like hot, like on it, and people are like, who the fuck are you? Because they don't think anywhere exists outside of London.
No, they
and
really
so
don't.
When
if
arrive,
it's not on the tube line, they're like, no.
Yeah, they're like, where's that? Is that another country? Do I need my passport? Yeah. And so it's that kind of thing of like, it's that kind of thing that is a real privilege actually to start, and especially in the north, like things are changing and growing all the time. I think in terms of what we're offering, and to be able to then go and gig, and it was really nice to go and gig in London and people to be like, who the fuck are you?
Really
and being like, I exist outside of London.
Yeah, even as someone who started there and now has lived and been working up north for like 10 years, a few times I go back and gig in London, it's such a nice feeling of just being like how much my work's jumped in quality. And now I'm kind of going back to people who I've either not met because like new people are starting and quitting all the time, or people I've just not seen in ages, being like, oh yeah, no, you do still exist because you don't see me doing like the same more or less 5 minutes every other week in slightly different dingy pubs.
That's it.
And also, open spots up north tend to be 10 minutes as well, which I think helped. I struggle to go back and do 5-minute sets now. I absolutely. I was always one of the people who like overrun a lot anyway, doing 5 minutes. But even if I try to write a 5-minute set, it will end up being close to 10, if not more.
No, I think that's such a good thing. Like it means in terms of like competitions and stuff that like Londoners seem to have that upper hand with that because they are so used to having like honing their fives.
Yeah.
But I do think having that jump is invaluable, really, because it is.
So. It's almost a completely different skill. Like I think doing a really polished 5-minute set is kind of a different beast to doing a 10-minute set. I certainly find it is.
Yeah, defo.
Yeah, and then doing like a gong and doing a gong show 5 and doing another like a showcase 5 as well, completely different skill sets.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Super different.
I'm gonna like rattle through a few of these questions before we wrap up. Cool. But yeah, we got some really interesting stuff out of that. I think we kind of touched on this, and then I was going to ask this as a follow-up question. But so, first of all, I've not actually asked how long have you actually been performing now? Because I think you started reasonably recently in the grand scheme of things.
So it's been 4 years, but obviously there was a pandemic.
Yeah, so, that's it. Yeah.
I'd been going a year when we locked down.
Yeah.
So
that's it. 'Cause I think Sam Serrano recommended you to us, and I don't remember if this was before or during lockdown initially. So I can't remember if we had you like booked in for a live show and then lockdown hit or not.
I think so. Yeah. I think possibly. You know what? In some ways, it's been annoying because certain gigs, obviously, I then had to cancel and rebook like after we kind of opened up again. But then some others, I've been able to like kind of like get in because I think the promoters have felt like have taken pity on me. Like they're like, oh shit, yeah, like we were supposed to have you in for this. Oh yeah, we'll just give you a spot for this now. Sick. Great.
Yeah, just like cashing all them. It's been a nightmare booking gigs. Like I think we've just about worked through all the backlog now, but yeah, it took like we started back in October 2021, so it's taken like the best part of 1.5-2 years to kind of clear that backlog.
Through everyone. Proper.
Yeah, and there's like a few people who we didn't get, like Ava couldn't get back in touch with. A few people who we had booked in who we absolutely could not afford now. That people have like I remember I was like tentatively talking to Sophie Duker in like 2019 to try and get her on, and she seemed keen. That definitely wouldn't happen now. She's way too big. Early on, chatting to Jordan Gray, who again seemed interested, but was like, I can't just because we can't pay as much as a lot of big clubs because we are independent. So sort of being like, okay, well, if you're up north at some point, we'll try and work it out. And then, but again, that's not going to happen now. She's a fucking superstar, and good on her.
Yes. Oh my god, she's amazing. She's the best.
I actually didn't ask a question I was going to ask, which was, this is how easy I get distracted. I wanted to ask, so how different do you think your stage voice is to your social voice? And I mean that is like not like literal voice, but like your kind of persona, so to speak.
I think I'm a lot nicer than I am on stage.
I wasn't which round you're going to go. I'm going to go for that for a minute. I thought you were going to say I think I'm a lot nicer on stage. I was like, how horrible are you in real life?
Really? No, I'm lovely. I think a lot of the things that I say on stage, it's like things that I maybe wouldn't dare to say unless I said it to like a mate. Just because it's stuff that I maybe wouldn't say in person, like just as me. But then it's kind of like having that privilege of being like, I'm what. But then I also think I can be quite cutting when I'm comfortable with people. So maybe that's a lie. But I think it's hard as well because I feel like my persona is evolving as well, and I think it's that thing of sometimes I can kind of lean into this kind of this, like, my persona kind of was pretty much there from the off as well. And so I didn't really have to generate like anything, but I'm really glad actually in a way, because it's been really good to kind of have this like slow pace that can kind of, I don't really ever quicken up. Nothing seems to throw me enough to quicken me up. Even North Wales didn't break me. I was like, fuck it, he's asked. I'll keep me pace. But otherwise, I think I am a nicer person in day to day, and I just try to be a nicer person in the day to day.
Okay, because I mean, we've not we've only met each other in person once, I think. If it's been more than that, I apologise for forgetting. But like, we've had you on live once, and I've definitely met you then. I don't think I've met you since. So I obviously can't comment about what you're like in real life. But it does feel like on stage you are presenting a very authentic version of yourself. Obviously, like a bit kind of like sarkier at times to get those extra lines. But
I do think I am sarcastic anyway, like as a person. It isn't.
But that's kind
it's
of like
not
heightened.
too far.
Yeah.
It's not too far. Like it's not like I'm trying to think of people who like play totally differently. I guess then it kind of becomes a bit charactery. Whereas no, my persona is definitely derived from like a part of my personality that is yearning to be to be out there, like just needs to be heard.
I think it really works. I think you're natural. I mean, obviously now you're probably a little bit heightened because we are still being watched. It's a bit of an unnatural environment, but it does feel like you have a very you have a personality that naturally suits being on stage. I think that obviously requires like a little bit of tweaking, and I think as well this is part of. I think like certain regions, and like Liverpool's definitely one, I'd say Birmingham's another, have a lot of stereotypes associated with the accent, and yours isn't like super strong, but I think it's strong enough that I imagine London, especially, and like a lot of places down south, and possibly even like the other side of the north as well, would kind of have some, not even necessarily intentional, but like some subconscious negative stereotypes with it. One of them, like I think, like Scouse and like Brummie specifically, are like there's a kind of like assumed low intelligence with them in some way, which I think you can kind of in comedy you can work to your favor, because like you've got that, and then because you like to live so kind of like slow and collected as well. The kind of wit off the back of that is even it gets even heightened last with certain audiences. I've noticed.
Oh, that was nice. Yeah, I really do try and push through that, that stereotype, because I also feel like sometimes people are like, oh, what's that noise? Like, it's just like, oh, shut up. But I really, really like that. Like sometimes when I write like so I've got a joke about my job, and I take people's bloods and stuff, and so the job is basically that my job is a bit like other jobs, and then I say it's a bit like the police in that I can cause bruising and say that it was part of my job, right? So that's like the joke. And I love when people are like,
they just don't expect it. Yeah,
she's real bright, like, and I'm like, I am bright, and I am actually like culturally aware, and I really kind of I am socially. No, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm not an activist, but I don't know really. But I do really give a shit about how people treat one another, and so in terms of that, I feel like people are like, oh, look at you, and I'm like, yeah, I know, right? Like it's quite nice to kind of like unseat that narrative that they have in their brains of this kind of one type of of Scouse humor of like calm down and all that sort of shit.
I think it makes people let their metaphorical guard down a bit. So when you do come out with something that is like really like kind of like left field and like really biting, which you do quite frequently in the tragically a few times I've seen you perform, but like even in like the short times I have, that is something that I think you are incredibly good at, and I think the fact that people have these kind of subconscious preconceived notions of what that accent means really works to your advantage there, because they're
I really want to keep trying to play with that as well, like that thing of like, I remember someone saying to me, so my first set was really blue, like really blue. Like I did a set, like it was about like having a rectal exam and enjoying it, like it was a lot. And I didn't invite my parents to it, obviously, because I was like,
sensible,
but I did this bit, and it was like, I felt like people were saying, you come on and you kind of seem very like, hello, like, like whatever. And then like saying this stuff that it's like this, oh God, like, I guess it's like, I'm not comparing myself to Sarah Millican, but it's like, sometimes
I think
when
it's that
she
same
does,
kind of...
like talking about, real graphic like sex stuff
but she's
or
got like a
whatever
really
it may
friendly and
be.
accessible
But there's
voice and delivery.
yeah, and that like messing with people's brains a bit. I really want to keep trying and play with that because I do think that like you said, sometimes it can just be like it can be that extra push,
Just like really
which is
fun to
nice.
play around with, and then obviously there's the added thing of like just being a woman in comedy as well. There's already certain environments that you already have certain expectations of what your comedy's going to be like. On top of that as well, so I think you're really good at taking advantage of that, and that's a delight to see. Okay, a few more quick questions. Well, I say quick. This might actually be a longer one. But so sort of going back to the point of you being quite authentically you on stage, and when you were talking about a lot of your material comes from either things that have happened to you or like your own personal perception of things. One thing that always fascinates me is because I absolutely cannot tell an anecdote in a social situation to save my life. Whereas I think you seem quite naturally good at taking anecdotes and making them work as stand-up, which again I think are two different skills. So do you have like a set kind of, I don't know, do you have like a set creative process for taking something that's happened to you or something you've witnessed and turning that into something that is Alex Stringer's stand-up, or is that something that comes fairly natural to you?
No. No, so I have usually like it is evolving as well in terms of like writing style. I still haven't pinned down how I write because I'm really good at procrastinating. And so I do love a bit of a spider web and that kind of thought process. But like I at one point I was kind of going through stories and it was like punchline, like that kind of thing. Whereas like my mate told me a funny thing the other week, and so I basically it was about her neighbour. So I like trimmed the fat, and it was like my neighbour, and then it was like, okay, what? So the basic idea was like, basically their neighbour watches porn on a really big screen, and it's really graphic, right? And she showed me a video of it, so it is true, like 100% true. I've seen it. And basically she was like, my neighbour's just had a little baby and she's going, it's fine now, but as he gets older, what am I going to say? And so that was just what she told me as a person. And then I was able to go, oh, what would the baby say? And then what would the parents say back? And so like the idea was like the baby being like, mummy, what's that lady doing? And her being like, well, Billy, when a woman loves 10 men very much, like that kind of thing. And so sometimes it's like what other people have said to me, or it's like an instant of what I've been in and kind of just trying to build out from that. But it's just weird.
I think it's absolutely an art. It's something I really struggle with, and I really want to talk about more personal experiences. But that's something I think the way I write, I think lends itself more to kind of exploring politics and ideas rather than specific situations. Because I always overthink about, okay, this needs to be completely accurate but also funny, but then I'm like, well, I can't bend the truth to make it funnier because then it's not accurate, and then people will know it's not accurate, and like, how do I still make it believable? And I just kind of get really in my head about all that.
You know what is mad though? One story that I used to tell loads, I don't really tell it that much on stage anymore. A mate said to me once, you shouldn't say that story because it's not believable. And I was like, it fucking happened to me.
Be so annoying.
I was like, are you shitting me? Like, what psychopath would make that up? And like, that's the thing as well. I feel like that the thing that I really like about writing around truth is that it's like, so much of it is so hard to make up. But I've tried to write around, thought processes or ideas that I've had. And usually sometimes it kind of, I don't know, it almost like it doesn't lend it. Like to me, I'm reading it and going, that's fact. Like that's not funny, that's fact. And so I think, but I do think that, people have different things that they lend to.
Sure,
but maybe that's something that I'll be able to learn, I guess, as time goes on, maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I really like to see how different people's kind of like writing processes work, and like because like when I'm watching people tell stories, I don't like, even if I know that, okay, this is clearly this part's been exaggerated for comic effect, probably. But as you say, that's not even necessarily. Sometimes the things that really happen are so weird that like it sounds made up, even though it's not. But I don't. When I'm watching stand-up, I don't spend time analysing that. But it's just when I'm writing stuff, I'm like, well, I need to heighten it enough to be funny, but not enough that it just feels like at least that it like feels written, which I think is it's never something I've got the hang of. But yeah, you seem really good at that from what I see, and I think we do just write in different ways. And I find it really fascinating to compare. This has been a really nice chat. I think I've got one more question, and we'll wrap up. Also, thank you to everyone who's been watching. We've had a first time chat from Liam Greenjacket, who I think is left now, but thanks for stopping by. Saying Sam is very wise in general. That's a recommendation I'd take. Absolutely, Sam Serrano is very wise. Absolutely killing it right now as well. Absolutely love him.
Amazing.
London Hughes was £6 at Fringe 19. Now will be 25, I reckon. Yeah. That's a name I probably didn't even know in 2019, and I've just seen it. I've never seen her. Is her, isn't it? I've never seen anything she's done, but I see her name around all the time. So yeah, she's definitely gone up a lot. Final question. This is one I end all the interviews on. What advice would you give to a younger you when you were first getting into stand-up?
Oh my god.
You can have a minute to think about it if you want.
I think maybe in one sense, like, be a little bit less green, in the sense that like some people some people really give more of a shit than I do in terms of and are willing to kind of do other people dirty or chat shit about other people,
sure,
to progress them further.
Yeah.
And so that thing of like, to just kind of, to be fair, I did keep my head down, but just that kind of that thing of, just stay like the nodding, like the, Churchill nodding dog, like, oh yes, like, just not have an opinion, because it just never really seems to end well for those people. No. Stay off the forums like you did do. I think that's a good,
absolutely, yeah.
a good thing to do. I think also to like know that you're to really like, stick to your morals, and really like, I feel like only in the past like year, 6 months to a year, have I kind of realized the importance of kind of really in terms of really giving a shit about wanting to help other women in comedy, and actually realizing that kind of help can start earlier. Like, I think I just thought that I had nothing anyone else would want, or any kind of opinion that anyone else would care about. But actually, advice starts from day dot. Like, we're all on this same journey, and so being able to be like, just maybe going out of my way to get to know other women, or other people that I'd not gigged with before, just getting to know them earlier, and just kind of not being and also in the early days, there's going to be a worldwide pandemic in a year, so and it's not a joke. start writing the jokes now, and you'll be like way ahead of the game. But keep treating people with kindness, and like, kill them with kindness. And I really have tried to do that from the off. I've never. I'm not saying this in hindsight of going, we went down a dark path, my love. Like, I hopefully am. I think someone who kind of pushes that out. But I think, just like, I wouldn't do anything differently. To be fair, I've kind of done it all the way that I think it was supposed to be.
That's really lovely.
I think that's like, and it's that thing of moving forward in comedy. I feel like a lot of people start comedy and they think Live at the Apollo is like next week, and it's like, it's really not.
No, like
And so I think
a lot
having
of
that-
professional comedians who are doing really well for themselves are never going to be on Live at the Apollo. That's not.
No, and I think it's having that in your back, in the back, you know, and
Yeah.
kind of just going, just do what you
Yeah.
enjoy and do it
Yeah.
because you enjoy it. I see far too many people that really don't look like they're enjoying it. And
No,
I'm
they
like,
get
"Why are you
disheartened.
doing it?"
Yeah.
Yeah, why are you doing it? Why are you putting yourself through that? You don't have to. And so just remember why you started and just,
Yeah.
you know, keep just kind of enjoying the fun of it because it's
That's really good
supposed
advice.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do forget a lot. I think lockdown was a kind of made a lot of people kind of check themselves in that aspect when they're like suddenly they can't do it. Like I think a lot of people were like, "Do I actually miss doing this? Have I just
Yeah.
kind of given myself this arbitrary kind of like, okay, I'm gonna grind at this until I'm dead or it's my career."
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, okay, yeah, no, I do miss this, but I think it's made people appreciate being able to do it more and focus on the fun of it. I hope anyway, and I hope that lasts.
I do feel like even though people, you know, grumble because they go, I used to be able to do this before the pandemic and now I have to do this and that's more annoying.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it has made people reassess their relationship with it.
I
and
think
kind
it
of
definitely
gone,
has, yeah.
Oh, you know, do I love it? Do I want to do it? Like,
Yeah.
why am I doing it? And like, yeah, and whatever that may look like for them is great. And I
Yeah.
think it's just that like, yeah, like I feel like I have kind of held this in good stead since I started, but like the best thing I ever say to myself, it's just not that deep. It's just
Yeah,
jokes.
it's just not that deep,
It's
yeah.
just not that deep.
Yeah.
Like, and that is, I think that I would be like, I'd say even to like younger me, pre-comedy, just as a person, I'd be like, Alex,
mantra.
it's just not that deep, my
Mantra
love.
for
Like,
life.
it's just not. Yeah. I feel like we, in terms of where we're at in life, we just hold these things and we think that it's the end of the world or whatever, and it's like it's just not that deep.
No, it really isn't.
No.
Yeah, that's a lovely note to end on. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and thanks to everyone who stayed to watch. This, if you missed some of it, this will be available on our YouTube channel. Link, if there's a link tree in the chat for all of our socials. I'll pop all of Alex's links back in the chat as well, so you can go follow her if you're not already. Also, the Frog and Bucket show on Tuesday. Tell us a bit about that. The link is in the chat as well.
Yeah, so it's called Femmes and Thems. That's what the night is called. We did our first one in March on International Women's Day, and it was a sellout, did really well. And so, they're having us back on Tuesday, the 9th of March, I think it is. We've got Hayley Ellis headlining, Sam Serrano is opening, and we've got me and Carol Burke and I'm like, please remember them because this is really painful not remembering. Justina Cecil Skater in the middle, and then Tegan Marlowe as MCing. But it should be good. I think the tickets at £10. All the actor paid. Don't worry, it's not like me going, I'm gonna be scoused and just like put it in my pocket. But and you know, it's just it was the first one was a really lovely vibe. So we're hoping to create that again. But yes, that's on Tuesday at the Frog and Bucket, Femmes and Thems, and tickets are available on the Frog website. And I gave Johnny the link before.
Yep.
So.
The link is in the chat if anyone would like to book tickets for that. Wonderful. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I've just had a look and there's not really anyone online, I think, it's worth raiding, so I think we're probably gonna there probably are, but not anyone that I'm following, and I'm not going through everyone. So we're gonna call it there. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back here on Twitch at some point. So you were struggling to remember the acts you've got booked, so I don't remember what the fuck I'm doing next week. So we've got our first previews on Sunday. Actually, speaking of Sam Serrano's doing one of them. I'll put the link to our Outsavvy in the chat. So we've got a few shows coming up. We've got Sam Serrano and Ryan Kenny doing their previews on Sunday. On Tuesday, we've got Pope Lonergan headlining our show with bunch of other people. Hannah Platt guest emceeing, Melina
Nice.
Fiol, Sinead Walsh, and there's someone else who I cannot remember for the life of me. But yeah, this just absolutely happens. I've got so many people I never remember who I've got booked for specific shows, but it'll be a really good show. And then we've got a few more previews at the end of the month as well. And our next live stream will be the Popelon Again show, which will be on the 15th of May. So follow us on Twitch if you're not doing so already, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.